Rain fell, a cold drizzle. The hearse was black, so were the umbrellas. Eliza lay in the casket. Her face was too pale. The makeup made her look artificial, like a doll. A chill ran down my spine. She was gone. We gathered around the grave, friends united by grief, bound by a shared horror. It had been 4 years, 4 funerals, 4 friends lost. My heart ached. Emptiness gnawed at me. Guilt, fear, the rain dripped from my hat. Each drop a tear for Eliza, for all of them. 4 years earlier, we were young, carefree, foolish. Summer stretched before us, full of promise, full of laughter. The old house stood at the edge of town, boarded up, neglected. Rumors swirled around it, whispers of tragedy, of a curse. "I dare you," Mark said. His eyes gleamed with mischief. "Go inside, touch the handprints on the wall." The dare hung in the air, a challenge. Eliza giggled, nervous excitement. John grinned, eager to prove himself. I hesitated. A shiver ran down my spine. A year had passed. Time seemed to move both quickly and slowly. A paradox that left me feeling disoriented. Each day felt like an eternity, yet the months slipped by in a blur. The memory of that night was as vivid as ever, refusing to fade with the passage of time. The memory of that night haunted me. It was a foggy evening, the kind that makes the world feel like a ghostly dream. I often found myself lost in thought, replaying the events over and over, trying to make sense of it all. The look in John's eyes, the fear, the confusion, it was all too much to bear. The old house, the cold touch of the handprints. It was as if the house itself was alive, breathing, watching. The handprints on the window were a chilling reminder of the presence that lingered there. I could still feel the icy touch on my skin, a sensation that sent shivers down my spine, the feeling of dread. John's laughter was silenced. The hallway seemed to stretch on forever, each step echoing with a sense of impending doom. The car crash was a brutal punctuation to the night, a violent end to the laughter and joy we once shared. John's portrait now hung in silence, a solemn reminder of what we had lost, a car accident. They said it was instant, painless, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The wreckage, the flashing lights, the chaos, it all felt like a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. The authorities assured us it was quick, but the look in John's eyes told a different story. But the look in his eyes, the fear. It was as if he had seen something beyond the veil of our reality. His eyes were wide, filled with a terror that seemed to reach into my soul. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw that same fear reflected back at me. It mirrored the terror I felt that night. The shadows seemed to come alive, dancing on the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. The flashbacks were relentless, each one more vivid than the last. I was trapped in a loop of fear and confusion, unable to escape the haunting memories. We gathered at his grave. Eliza cried. The graveyard was a somber place, filled with the weight of our collective grief. Eliza's sobs were a painful reminder of the love we had lost. The headstone, etched with John's name, stood as a stark testament to the finality of death. Mark looked away, his usual bravado gone. Mark, who was always the strong one, couldn't bear to face the reality of our loss. His sorrowful expression spoke volumes, a silent admission of the pain we all felt. The group of mourners stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts and memories. I stood silently, guilt gnawing at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow responsible. The guilt was a heavy burden, one that I carried with me every day. As I stood there holding a rose, I felt a deep sense of regret and sorrow. The cemetery was a place of reflection, a place where I could confront my demons. Was it my fault? The handprints, the curse? The questions haunted me, gnawing at my sanity. The ghostly handprints were a constant reminder of the curse that seemed to follow me. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. Were they real? The thought sent chills down my spine. The fear was palpable, a physical sensation that left me shivering. I often found myself looking over my shoulder, expecting to see a ghostly figure standing there. The goosebumps on my skin were a testament to the terror that gripped me. The sun felt cold on my skin, like the touch of death. The setting sun cast long shadows over the graveyard, a chilling reminder of the passage of time. The cold, pale hand that I felt on my skin was a stark contrast to the warmth of the sun. It was as if death itself was reaching out to me, a haunting reminder of the night that changed everything. Another year, another loss. The passage of time felt like a cruel joke, each tick of the clock a reminder of what had been taken from us. Eliza. She had always been the strongest, the most vibrant. Her laughter could light up a room, and her energy was infectious. She was the glue that held us all together, the one we all looked up to. Now she was gone, taken by a sudden illness. It was as if the light had been snuffed out, leaving us in darkness. The hospital room where she spent her final days felt like a void, a place where hope had no place. I visited her grave, placed a single white rose on the cold stone. It was a small gesture, but it was all I could do. The weight of loss was heavy, almost unbearable. The fear that had been a whisper was now a scream in my mind. It was relentless, gnawing at my sanity. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every creak of the floorboards a sinister omen, the curse. It was real, no longer just a story whispered in the dark. It had become our reality. The old book with its faded pages held secrets we were never meant to uncover. Mark refused to believe it. He called it coincidence. Bad luck. But deep down I knew he was just as scared as I was. His frustration was a mask, hiding the fear that lurked beneath. But his eyes were haunted. He knew. We both did. The curse had taken hold and there was no escaping it. The fear in his eyes mirrored my own, a silent acknowledgement of our shared fate. The weight of guilt pressed down on me. It was suffocating, a constant reminder of my failure. If only I'd been more careful. If only I'd listened to the warnings. If only I had stopped them. If only I'd never touched those handprints. The regret was overwhelming, a bitter pill I had to swallow every day. But it was too late. The door had closed, and the shadows had taken over. There was no turning back, no undoing what had been done. The curse had taken hold, and we were its prisoners. Section 5. The second loss. A growing sense of dread. The rain poured down relentlessly, as if the heavens themselves were mourning. The solitary figure stood motionless, their back to the camera, facing 4 graves adorned with fresh flowers. The sky was dark and ominous, mirroring the despair that had settled in their heart. 2 years had passed since Eliza's funeral. 2 long years of trying to come to terms with the loss, of grappling with the emptiness that her absence had left behind. The cemetery had become a place of solace and sorrow, a place where memories lingered like the mist that often enveloped the gravestones. 2 years of living with the gnawing fear, the constant dread. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind seemed to carry a sinister message. The nights were the worst, filled with restless sleep and haunting dreams that left a lingering sense of unease. Then Mark was gone too. His presence, once a source of strength, was now just a memory. The empty chair at the dining table, the framed photo in the dimly lit room, and the abandoned personal belongings on the nightstand were constant reminders of the void he had left behind. His death was quick, merciless, a heart attack. The emergency medical team had worked tirelessly, but it was all in vain. The heart monitor flatlined, and the somber expression on the doctor's face said it all. The shock of his sudden departure was like a dagger to the heart. He had been so young, full of life. The memories of him smiling in the park, jogging energetically in nature, and the photo of the happy young couple in a sunny setting were now bittersweet. They were a stark contrast to the reality of his untimely demise. Now he was just another victim, another life claimed by the curse. The gravestone with fresh flowers, the mourner in the background, and the dark, overcast cemetery with multiple graves painted a grim picture. The close-up of the memorial photo with candles flickering in the wind was a poignant reminder of the fragility of life. I was alone, the last one standing, the solitary figure standing in the empty house, the person looking out the window in a dark room, and the single shadow on a deserted street, all symbolized the isolation that had become my constant companion. The weight of their deaths pressed down on me. It was a burden that seemed to grow heavier with each passing day. The person sitting alone at the table with their head down, the empty house with personal items scattered around, and the close-up of the tear-streaked face captured the overwhelming grief that had taken hold of me. Their faces haunted my dreams. Every night, I would wake up in a cold sweat, the ghostly images of their faces lingering in my mind. The close-up of the distressed face under dim light, the person waking up from a nightmare in a dark room, and the ghostly images of faces in a mirror were a testament to the torment that plagued my nights. Their voices echoed in my ears. It was as if they were trying to communicate with me from beyond the grave. The person covering their ears in distress, the dark corridor with faint voices echoing, and the shadowy figure whispering in the background all added to the eerie atmosphere that had become my reality. The curse was real, and it wasn't finished with me yet. The person looking scared in a dark alley, the close-up of fearful eyes in the dark, and the person holding a protective charm tightly were all signs that the danger was far from over. The sense of dread was palpable, and I knew that I had to be prepared for whatever came next. Mark's funeral was a blur. Rain, tears, whispers of the curse, but no one dared to say it out loud. Except me. I knew the truth. We had been cursed that night, the night we entered the old house, the night we touched the handprints. The handprints. They were burned into my memory. 5 sets of prints. Children's hands, frozen in time, a silent plea for help, or maybe a warning. I had to do something. I couldn't let the curse take me too. I had to find a way to break it, to save myself. I returned to the old house. It stood there, menacing, waiting. The door creaked open, as if inviting me in. I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and decay, and something else, something sinister. The handprints glowed faintly in the darkness. I reached out, my hand trembling. I had to try. My fingers brushed against the cold stone. A jolt surged through me. Visions flashed before my eyes. Children laughing, then screaming. Fire, pain, death. The curse wasn't something you broke. It was something you carried, a burden, a reminder of your sins. I stumbled back, falling to my knees. Tears streamed down my face. It was over. There was no escape. The curse would take me too. But as the darkness closed in, I felt a strange sense of peace, acceptance. I was ready. They found my body the next morning, slumped against the wall, a look of peace on my face. Another victim of the cursed house. The town whispered about the curse. Some dismissed it as superstition, others believed. But no one dared to enter the house again. The house still stands today, a testament to the tragedy. The handprints still glow faintly in the darkness, a reminder of the curse that claimed so many lives. And the cycle continues.